Worked at a grocery chain as a courtesy utility clerk. The vendor for 7-Up and Dr. Pepper screwed up stacking their pallets, so they all fell over, creating a nice pile of broken glass, sticky soda, and wet, messy cardboard. Boss made me clean it all up, and told me not to leave it even for a second. Got it all cleaned up in about 2 hours. Not bad save for me, nearly getting shanked by some large glass shards on the floor. But where it became unreasonable was the very next day. I got called into the office and written up. By the same boss. Why? I had failed to do floor inspections. He expected me to be able to be in 2 places at once. That was fun to contest. Retired paramedic. I was told to immediately place a freshly delivered newborn back inside the mother. She delivered in a transport ambulance en route to Weill Cornell, and lost it that her baby wasn't born in a hospital and further not born in a good hospital. The mother told me to hold the baby in with your ducking hand. I explained it wouldn't work, and that we were having this child on 3rd Avenue in the middle 50s, and she flipped. So she and I had an agreement I would say the baby was still inside her body till we backed up at the hospital. I guess this satisfied the requirement of being born at a hospital versus next to a dry cleaners on 3rd Avenue. So as far as that kid knows, she was born in the Weill Cornell ER ambulance bay. What is the most unreasonable thing you've been asked to do at work? Asked by a manager or customer. I was asked to lay off a group of employees for another manager. She begged me to do it, and I initially refused. This manager selected and approved the list of people being let go, and was 100% responsible for even needing a layoff. She overhired in her area because she misrepresented her projected needs, and let her group's performance fall below standard. No one wants to be part of a layoff on the receiving or giving side, unless you're a total sadist, and I really believe if you are laying your people off, you need to have the balls to do it yourself, period. I wound up doing it, because everyone in the building already figured out something was happening based on her behavior, and it seemed excessively cruel to postpone things since everyone was on edge. I felt like the angel of death that day. People couldn't even make eye contact with me as I walked the halls, because if I stopped at someone's desk they knew they were losing their job. My people were terrified, and I still feel terrible about how that day went down because I couldn't say anything until it was done. Layoffs are horrible, and this manager hiding from their responsibility made it even worse. Fortunately my boss agreed and he fired her for it. Back when I was the manager of a movie theater, I had just got done working 14 hours, because someone called in sick, tried to submit payroll to accounting, the fax wouldn't go through, asked the accountant to go to the office, about 2 blocks from her home, and see if she could fix it. She said she was too tired, and that I should instead drive the 50 miles to hand deliver it. I ended up doing it, because if I didn't, then my staff wouldn't get paid, but there were about 8 nasty emails I sent afterwards to various higher ups. A few weeks later I quit that job to become a busboy. Single best career move I've ever made. Pull weeds in Iraq before a congressman came to visit. The war must be going well. Look at this landscaping. When Obama came to visit Afghanistan we were told by our SFC we had to stay in our little office. It was the morning, and I just had 2 cups of coffee. I said screw it, talked to the Secret Service, said I was going to shit myself before the meet and greet. They let me go. Knew a CB who spent a short tour at Camp David. They had to prepare for a visit by President Bush by raking up every single leaf on the grounds. Keep in mind that Camp David has dozens of acres and hundreds of trees. When Bush arrived, he looked around and said, "It's autumn, where are all the leaves?" When he went inside, they had to redistribute every single leaf they had raked up just because of that remark. To work for 2 months without being paid, as a trial to see what kind of an employee I would be, before he decided if he was going to offer me a paid job or not. He was somewhat surprised when I declined the offer. Edit. For everyone who forgets to read the last line, I did not take the job. Also, it was a commercial airplane pilot job, not an entry-level position, and for the love of all things chocolate, this was not an internship. But it's a great opportunity to build your portfolio. We just need you to show us that you're a team player. If anyone ever tells you that, spit right in their face, because they just did it to you. Got asked by my boss to go to the building site next door and ask the builders to stop construction, as they were being too loud. Not for a specific length of time, just to stop working. I had to ask him what he thought that would actually achieve. A while back, there was a carpenter renovating the office next to ours. My boss went next door and yelled at him. "You should do this after hours. Do you like listening to hammering and sawing all day while you're at work?" The carpenter said, "Actually, yes, I do. Friend of mine was doing some remodeling on an empty office suite with his two sons, one a finished carpenter, the other is an electrician, in order to get it ready for the next tenant. So, noise, some mess, some inconvenience for the others who leased space in the office building on that floor. Douchebag across the hall complains. Same thing, they should be working at night. He couldn't get anything done with all the noise, they were making a mess. He was pissed and was going to call the leasing agent to complain. My buddy tells the guy to call the building owner instead. The leasing agent would just blow him off. Larry says, "Here, I have his card and number right here." Mr. Business Guy dials the number. Larry's cell phone rings. Guy looks at Larry all puzzled. Larry tells him, "I own this building, bud." A manager asked me to wrap my arm up in a bin bag and stick my hand into a toilet to try and unblock it. I was a waiter/barman, taking food out to customers. Highlighted this to him, and he insisted that I do it. I promptly told him to duck off, and mentioned health and safety. He ended up doing it. On a side note, he was fired 2 weeks later for making inappropriate comments to female staff members. He was a douchebag. I was asked to do this QA thing before the week's ends. When I asked if she wanted me to wait until next week because otherwise I get into overtime, she responded by saying, "Do it this week, but put it in next week's payroll." No. It made me so angry. Edit. Wow, this hit more than my nerve. To clarify, in my situation, I wasn't required to provide notice. I was simply being nice. I don't care too much about the cash. I figure what's good for the workplace is good for me. So this is why it angered me so much. Also, she did these kind of things a lot. Bartender. On Good Friday at 9 PM, a lady had the nerve to ask me to tell another customer to quit swearing because it was Good Friday. I told her as nicely as I could that we're all adults, and that I simply wouldn't feel okay with telling another paying customer to stop swearing. My boss saw the conversation, and me walking away while she had a sour expression on her face. He asked me what that was about, so I told him. He actually had the nerve to tell me that I needed to go tell the guy to watch his mouth. Now keep in mind my boss was a cool guy, so I could speak openly to him. Not the best bar manager, he was a banker before and got the job because he was the owner's friend and just got tired of banking. So, I responded to him like I wish I could have responded to her. Which was something along the lines of, if the sanctimonious bitch is so ducking worried about swearing on Good Friday, what the duck is she doing in a sports bar drinking? I literally will walk out of this job right now before I impose her will on another customer because of her beliefs. To which he said, "Good point. Duck her." When I was 18, I worked part-time at UPS, and also part-time at Burger King, which was more of a way to eat for free every day than anything else. This was in 2000 or 2001, so minimum wage was still $5.15, and I wasn't making much more than that at Burger King. I'm working the drive-thru window one night, when a visibly intoxicated couple comes into the dining room and orders some food. My manager was working register, and one other guy was there cooking the food. The drunks ordered a bunch of deep-fried stuff, and we didn't have enough chicken tenders on hold. So the manager tells them it's going to be a couple minutes while the tenders and fries cook. No problem, they're going to use the restroom. The restrooms were down a hall, and the doors faced each other, so we didn't think anything of it when they went down the hall together. Their order comes up and they're not back yet, so we bag it up and leave it under the heat lamps while we wait for them. 2 minutes turns into 5, and I'm busy on the drive-thru window so I half-ass forgot about them. An indeterminate amount of time goes by, probably 15 minutes, maybe half an hour, and my manager asks me if I expedited that order, gave them their food. I tell her no, they never came back for their food after going to the bathroom. She goes into the women's room, doesn't see anyone, then opens the door to the men's room. I heard her dry heave from my station at the window, a good 20 feet away. She came around the wall that separated the dining area from the work area, and it looked like she'd seen a ghost or a dead body. I asked her what was wrong, and she just shook her head, telling me that she would take over drive-through window because I had to clean the bathroom. I geared up, elbow-length gloves, goggles, dust mask, and slickers, not knowing what kind of hell was unleashed in that stall. Nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for what I saw in there. It looked like they hooked up a colostomy bag full of mostly liquid shit and semi-chunky vomit to a paint sprayer and blasted every single surface in there with the shit puke. The stall was caked, the door handle had shit smeared on it, there was vomit in the sink, next to the sink, in the trash can, next to the trash can, just ducking everywhere I looked there was shit, puke, or both. I didn't even make it 3 steps into the room before my gag reflex reminded me that it existed. My eyes were watering, my stomach was doing somersaults, and I was choking back my own barrage of puke when it hit me. Hey, duck this. Nope. Not a ducking chance. I choked out true gasps of air, not a ducking chance in hell I'm cleaning that up. Call hazmat. Half joking, not thinking my manager would actually expect me to clean that up. Boy, was I ever wrong. Optical delusions. If that bathroom isn't clean by the end of your shift then don't bother coming bar. She didn't get to finish the sentence. I'd already thrown my hat and shirt on the floor. Sorry Jill, but you don't pay me nearly enough for this shit. I can find another shitty minimum wage job tomorrow. Good luck with that debacle in there. And just like the phantom shit pukers, I was gone. I'm in the Navy and I had to sweep water off of the pier as it was raining. I was in the army. I was asked to exchange the contents from adjacent sheds A and B. Instead, I simply changed the signage. Command was not amused. I'd think that would be officer material right there. Not as horrifying as some of the others, but in the early 90s I worked at a well-known US Depot for office supplies. One time, for reasons I never understood, an edict came down that a certain class of inventory was to be destroyed and discarded. That meant that perfectly good merchandise including office furniture, lamps, computers, printers, copiers, fax machines, and some other random bits were to be taken out back and literally smashed to pieces with a hammer, then thrown in the bin. The most amazing part was that under no circumstances was this stuff allowed to be given away, sold, or otherwise allowed to survive and benefit anyone. Several employees begged and pleaded to be allowed to buy some of the things, but nope. Better to destroy it and get nothing in return. It wasn't a huge number of items, but it was easily $10,000 worth of stuff. My own review. My boss was too lazy to do my department's reviews, so he told me to do all of them. I told him to duck off. He said he would take me to HR. I told him I would bring the email where he asked me to review my coworkers, which was his job. I got a great review and he bought me lunch. Edit. For clarity, he caved and wrote the reviews. I used to work in a food processing plant when I was in high school. The job sucked, it was hot on the lines, and the place smelled horrible. I got told by my boss that I had to go outside and pick up cigarette butts from the sidewalk, where the other workers went outside during breaks to smoke. I wasn't a smoker, and I was pretty pissed at first, but being outside picking up nasty cigarette butts was actually more enjoyable than working inside on the lines. I had a serious self-re-evaluation of my job that day. One time, a customer asked me for all the money in the registers. Since he had a gun, I didn't feel it was that unreasonable at the time. Looking back, it was a bit of an odd request. Son, I've got some bad news. You may have been robbed. I know it sounds crazy but it has all the classic earmarks of a robbery. Those customers are the worst.